emptiness is not what you think. In fact, it's impossible to really think what emptiness is, but it is what you are, and everything is. This is what it means that form is emptiness, emptiness is form, in the beginning of the Prajnaparamita, the Heart Sutra. Everything is emptiness. The experience of emptiness is the experience of truth, of reality. And it's something that we often avoid. Some people say that that death really is simply our way of avoiding the reality of what we really are, of our empty nature, our true empty nature, simply trying to avoid that or put it off until the moment of physical death, to realize that there is no separate self. There is nothing separate anywhere. The illusion of separation that we cling to so strongly. This body, this person, this self, this life, all of this, it doesn't really exist in reality. So emptiness is simply pointing to this. The Tibetan Buddhists have an interesting concept of what they call a tulka, which is a being that is awake and chooses to reincarnate into a form again. And in doing this, it can choose anything, right? It can choose being a person or a plant or an animal or even the wind, And this is kind of a beautiful poetic way of describing emptiness and the process of death and rebirth. It's poetic in that we want to see this as, we don't want to reify it. In other words, we don't want to make a belief out of it and reify it as something that's real or true. We just want to use it to open our minds to truth, to reality, to help us let go of the illusions that we're attached to, so that we can have a direct experience of it. And as I was out doing meditation this morning on my roof in the sun, afterwards I was sitting in meditation after doing some yoga and feeling the heat of the sun, which felt wonderful, and also feeling this breeze that was sort of, combining with the heat of the sun, sort of reducing some of the heat, in this very beautiful, gentle way. And this is a reincarnation of emptiness. The wind, the breeze is emptiness. The sun is emptiness. This body is emptiness. All of it interacting together in this beautiful sort of cooperative way, because it's all emptiness. It isn't really the wind or the sun or this body or skin. It's all really emptiness. It's free of that illusion of separation. The name and form we call the wind, a breeze, and the sun, and the body. But these are illusions. It's really none of those things. None of them are. They're not things. Emptiness is not a thing. There are no actual things. This is our illusion, our ignorance, the way things appear to us in this dream. But in reality, it's not that. It's all emptiness. This is what non-duality is. It's not dual. There's not one thing and another thing, or me and something else, me and other. There are no others. There's just emptiness. And there's no me as a separate person, being, spirit, soul, whatever. That doesn't exist. There's just the pure emptiness, the pure being of emptiness, the pure isness of emptiness. And emptiness is not a thing. So we cannot say, even to say it exists, we can't say. We can't say it either exists or doesn't exist. Neither are accurate. So here when we really look into emptiness and realize emptiness and experience emptiness, thoughts fall apart. Words cannot describe this. It's more than that, but it is the fundamental reality of all existence. We are this, and that's how we know it. We are not a separate person, a body, mind, person, vehicle, spirit, soul, whatever. We are this. And in this way, can the breeze be a reincarnation of this? Of course. Can the wind be Ramana Maharshi or Buddha? Of course. Because it's all emptiness. Ramana is emptiness, Buddha is emptiness, you are emptiness, I am emptiness. So we're reincarnating continuously in everything that exists. We are everything that exists. And we're reincarnating continuously as this changing flow of things are born and die, come and go. We're constantly reincarnating. We don't have to wait till we die. We're reincarnating in every millisecond as the breeze, as the sun, as a body. And all of these are changing continuously too. So we're constantly reincarnating. The breeze is constantly reincarnating. The sun is constantly changing and reincarnating, and this body is constantly changing and reincarnating, and so is yours. So this is really more, vastly more than the mind is able to comprehend. All we can do is let go of the mind, of this small, tiny, confining, limited view of how things are. And that includes science and even quantum physics. It's vastly too small. It's vastly too limited. And we're not. Reality is not. Life is not limited. Emptiness is not limited. It's limitless. We're limitless. So can the breeze be Ramana Maharshi? Of course. Of course it is. Can it be Buddha? Yes, of course it is. Can it be you? Of course it is. You're reincarnating as the breeze in every second. So this experience of emptiness is an experience of love, an experience of one, an experience of a kind of mutual care of the self taking care of the self, emptiness taking care of emptiness. The self is empty. The self is emptiness itself, the self with a capital S, as Ramana called it. God is empty, empty of a separate self, full of everything else, full of reality. You are empty of a separate self that you call yourself, your person, your name, your form. You're empty of that, and you're full of reality, full of emptiness, full of everything. So this is not an attainment to realize emptiness. It's simply letting go of the illusions that there is separation, that I am a separate being and that everything is separate from me. It's letting go of that common illusion, that consensus illusion that we call reality. Reality of name and form and separation and duality. That's an illusion. That has never really existed. And yet in our culture, in our society, this is how everything is seen, perceived, and talked about, even in science. Or quantum physics is looking, and so they're down to now the beauty of the wave and the particle, and they don't really know, is it a wave or is it a particle? And now it's called a wavicle because they don't know which it is. What could it be? At some point it's a wave, at some point it's a particle. But see, even the name wave and particle, even the concept of a wave and particle is illusion, is duality. There is only emptiness. There is no wave and particle. And the more we examine and delve into this and use the super collider at CERN to try and find the smallest particle, we're still looking for a thing, a tiny particle that will explain how all of this is. And there really isn't anything like that. That's just more duality. That's just more illusion. There is the totality of emptiness, the fullness of everything, and no separation anywhere. So when we actually do find this tiny quantum particle, and smaller than we've already found, to the scientists, it's eureka, we finally found the source of all life. But no, of course not, because that is empty. We've just found something that's emptiness and called it a particle. When we discover emptiness, we understand the foundation of all life, understand the foundation of all form, understand the foundation of the universe, the Big Bang and everything else. We understand that because it's all emptiness. It's all this thing that we call emptiness, but emptiness is not a thing. So we can't think it, we can't imagine what it is, we can't describe it, because we can only describe things, objects. And emptiness is not a thing, and it's not an object, nor is it a subject. It's empty of all that. It's empty of all those illusions. It is the truth of non-duality, the fundamental truth of all existence, the fundamental truth of you and me and everything else. So in the direct experience of this, in practical terms, in this stream of form, we feel the breeze not as something that we call breeze, not as something separate, but as emptiness itself, and the sun as emptiness itself, and this body as emptiness itself. And it's magnificent how there's this interaction with it, even though it's all emptiness. As it appears to be form and separation, there's this wonderful interaction, but the reality is that it's all one, that it's all emptiness. And that's a wonderfully comforting feeling and experience. And love. We can't really say why there's love, there just is. Why there's peace, there just is. Why there's bliss, there just is. And this is what we experience when we let go of the illusion of separation, the illusion of name and form, the illusion of things that are separate from each other. Because nothing is separate from anything else. It's all emptiness. And emptiness is wonderful because emptiness is truth. So often the word emptiness can frighten us at first because we're holding on to our illusions. We're holding on to our dream, name and form, a separate person. We're holding on to this for dear life, whether it's consciously or unconsciously. And because we're holding on and so attached, we fear truth. We fear reality. We fear letting go of this illusion. Because when we see the illusion as it is, when we see truth as it is, essentially the illusion dies. Like waking up from a dream. The dream dies when we wake up from it. It's no longer real to us. It falls away. In fact, it more than dies, it never really existed. We realize that it never really existed. So it's not something that lives and then dies, something that lives, exists for a while and dies. It never existed. It was never really born. It never existed. and it never dies because it never was. For something to die, it has to at one point have been. But this illusion of a self never was. And that's primarily what we're afraid of, never having existed. But it's only an illusion that's never existed. It's not anything real. And when we can let go of that illusion, realize that it never existed and accept that it never existed, and that there only is this unexplainable, inconceivable, but wonderful emptiness and fullness. They're really the same thing. Emptiness is simply the emptiness of illusion, the emptiness of separation, the emptiness of a dream, and the fullness of reality, the fullness of what is. So it may sound paradoxical to the mind, but emptiness and fullness are the same thing, just different ways of seeing it. Usually we begin with emptiness because we first need to let go of the illusions of separation and duality in a personal self. We need to let go of this illusion of independence. And once we do, we experience the fullness of reality, the fullness of everything, and that there is no separation. So both of these are true, emptiness and fullness, nothing and everything. Both of these are true, both of these are one. Both of these are the same thing that is not a thing. And that's what we are. So it's wonderful to let go of this illusion and that, but our fear and our attachment makes us resist it. And this is why they say that death is simply the way of putting off the reality, pushing away the reality of the illusion not existing, pushing away the reality of the fullness of existence, of truth, of the wonder, peace, bliss, and love of what is, because that's the experience of it, but we're pushing that away. Instead, we're holding on to this tight little dream, which is suffering itself, and avoiding the reality of this peace, bliss, and love, of all that is, of the totality, of the fullness. We're resisting that because we don't want to let go of the illusion, even though it's causing so much suffering for us. It's just the way it is. It's the way of humanity. Little by little, you can let go. Little by little, step by step, you can begin to let go of that tight grip. Open your tight fists to what is. Not what you think is, because thinking is part of the dream and illusion. It's not going to help. But what is always here. So when we let go of our thoughts and simply be, simply experience pure being without thought, it's it. We are this. And that love just arises in us. It's always been here, but we're taking away the illusions that prevent us from experiencing it. We're taking away the illusions that prevent us from experiencing this complete and infinite bliss. We're taking away the illusions that prevent us from experiencing this peace beyond understanding. That's all. We're just letting go of what's in the way, which are our illusions, our dream of separation and duality and independence, separate personhood, name and form. Thoughts, because thoughts are essentially dualistic. Even when they try to understand emptiness and the totality and the oneness, they're still making it into a thing, oneness as opposed to two-ness, non-duality as opposed to duality. And there is no other, there is no opposed, there's nothing to oppose to, nothing to contrast with. There is only the undivided, inseparable reality. And this is what awakening is awakening to. It's letting go of the illusion, the ignorance that we've suffered under, the prison of our minds, and experiencing this fundamental reality, truth beyond anything that science has even come close to, or ever will, really. Because we can't examine emptiness, we can't examine reality, we can't examine truth. It simply is. We don't need to do that because it is the nature of what we are. So the realization of this is an inner exploration. It's a subjective exploration. It's a letting go, a shedding of all knowledge, all outward seeing, and simply letting our own true nature and true being show us the way. The way to what we've always been. There is nothing that a human being, which is a thing, an illusion, duality, a dream, nothing that this illusion of a human being can experience that is more profound, more wonderful than the direct experience of its true nature of emptiness, letting go of the dream of being a human, a person, knowledge, thoughts, letting go of all that and experiencing its true nature, letting go of all the reification that we use to create this illusion in something that's believable, in a way that we can believe it, reifying it, making something that's not real, real, which we've all done and are doing until we let go of that, of all of it. That castle built on sand crumbles and falls as it should, as it must, as it does. But we don't have to wait until the physical body dies. We can do that in our own meditation practice, in our own letting go. In this dream itself, we can wake up from this dream into a lucid dream. And then all the objects in this dream, all the illusions and appearances are wonderful because they're all emptiness. They're all what we are. And that's why there's love for everything and everyone. Because there is no separation. It's just illusion. So even this dream itself, this illusion of appearances of separation, becomes magnificent and amazing. The breeze, the sun, the body, other bodies, everything. When we see things as separate, we can't say that. We can't possibly love everything and everyone because our mind will say, well, this is a good one. That one's not so good. You know, I don't love that one, but I love this one. And it doesn't work. You can't have pure, true, unconditional love, which is the only real love there is, while you see separation. But when you don't see it anymore, when that illusion has gone, then everything is this. Everything is this emptiness. Everything is you. Everything is me. And you cannot help but love it. So you may be afraid of emptiness still, afraid of the death of this dream, the realization that everything you had experienced and believed for lifetimes has never really existed. You may be afraid of that realization, that experience, but in fact it is the most wonderful thing that there is. And yet, almost all of humanity is resisting it. Because in fact, this emptiness is so obvious. Once you see that it's impossible for anything to exist independent of everything else, how could it? Even in this physical world, in this physical forms, nothing can exist independent of everything else. It's very clear. Simply observing and not reifying so much this illusion of separation. And that's a beginning to see that in fact nothing is separate, or ever was, or ever could be. It's just an illusion, just a dream, just a mirage. And the reality of what is infinitely better than that in every possible way. That dream of separation and duality, even on the best days, is suffering. It's limited, confining, and an illusion. And the suffering is what helps us wake up from it, because at some point we're done with that. We want to find something more than simple suffering and good and bad days and all the rest of that goes on. We really want this limitless, unchanging peace, bliss, and love, freedom and wisdom that we are. That's what we really want, but it's so deeply buried in us that we're afraid to even admit it. You know, we settle for, well, I'll have a little bit of peace and a little bit of happiness, you know, mixed in with sadness, a little bit of love mixed in with no love, or even anger or hate or disagreements. We settle for that relative life because we're not willing to admit that what we really want is unchanging peace, bliss, and love. And that's the nature of what we are. That's the nature of letting go of the dream and experiencing the truth of what we are, true nature, empty of illusion, empty of separation, empty of duality, empty of ignorance. We shed that dream, let go of that dream, and return open to our true nature, what we've always been. And isn't that a good day? Isn't that wonderful? I wish this for you, to experience this.